John Hodge lived. And all these are wooden buildings. Some of them don't exist anymore, but they're wood frame buildings with wooden porches. It seems that one of his goats got out. We don't know if somebody let it out. We don't know if it was an accident, but it got out. And it was parading across John Hodge's wooden porch. And that bothered him so much that he decided to get up early in the morning and shoot it, and he killed it. When Francesco found out what he had done, he had confronted him about it. Do you understand? I don't think what he quite understood is the value to somebody who is Italian and a grocer, and what the goat meant to him. The goat was probably a big investment on his part, and the goat is used for a lot of different things. So there were words exchanged, heated words, but maybe not anything awful. But nothing was left resolved. He just sort of said, well, if you think you're going to do this, you should take care of this. So Francesco kind of backed down, and John F. Hodge, with his friend Cy Kaufman, went about their day. Obviously, they probably had to go to court. Probably they were called in other things. And all day, John F. Hodge kept recounting this story to everybody. But what he kept getting back was, well, you better watch out, Hodge. Those are Italians. They're probably mafiosi. You better watch your back. They'll put a stiletto in it. These are the kinds of things that he'd been told through the course of the day. Also, too, during the course of the day, because, it's a small community, I am sure Francesco was hearing some of this chatter back and forth, too. And all the white men with guns were in town. This had to be an intimidating thing for this family, to be hearing a lot of this chatter about people talking about them in such derogatory terms. They decided not to open their stores that day, and they stayed indoors. And in fact, there is even one account that says Francesco killed the rest of his goats just so he wouldn't cause any further problems. And as I'm telling you, it in some ways festive, and I think people had been drinking a lot during the course of the day. So we get to around past dinner time. Hodge went out to dinner with his friend Cy Kaufman. Again, Cy Kaufman said, you better make sure that you are well protected. So as Hodge, who knew he had to walk past these stores to go home, went out that night, he made sure that he was carrying a pistol, he was carrying a knife, he was quite well armed. And all day he kept talking about, in some bravado type terms, about how he could take care of himself. And you have to know the other thing about Hodge too. His father was heralded as a Civil War legend hero. He was called, what do they call him? The fighting preacher. He was somebody who had distinguished himself at a battle, as well as his father-in-law had distinguished himself in battle. And from what we can tell, Hodge never served in the military. So I think that there were little things that, for whatever reason, maybe he felt like he had to prove. But I think all day he kept telling people, I'll show them, I'm not going to let them get the best of me. If any of them gets near me, I will defend myself. And so after dinner, he walked by Giuseppe DeFada and Pasquale DeFada's house. Pasquale saw him walking by and simply said, he needed to say something at that point, because it seems to me it probably was true that Francesco killed all his goats. And that perhaps really bothered him. So he just simply went up to Hodge and said, do you understand what it is that you started here? Do you understand what it is that you've done to my family? And at that point, Hodge was just ready to fight. He took out his pistol. He went to go shoot Charles. The pistol jammed, and he wasn't able to shoot him. So he took the pistol and he started beating him in the head with it. Now, this is an older man at the time, in his 50s. Beating him, and Hodge was in his 40s and much taller. He was about 6 feet tall. So he certainly towered over Charles at that time. beating him in the head to where you could start seeing him smashing in his skull. His brother is watching this from the porch. And he simply is sort of saying, I've got to do something to stop this. He went in the house, he pulled out what was a bird rifle with bird shot. Now, I'm not a gun aficionado, probably many around you here are, but you know that bird shot is just these little pellets that come out. And that's what he had to threaten him. He just told him, and these are from witnesses who saw the event, please stop or I'm going to have to shoot you. Please, you're killing my brother. Please stop or I'm going to have to shoot you. And Hodge was not stopping, so he saw the rifle, and what he said he did was he turned himself sideways to minimize the target, and he did shoot at him, and what happened was he was, in reality, just scratched. When you read the newspaper accounts, he was gravely wounded and near death. But in reality, he just had a few scratches. Unfortunately, though, everybody who was listening to Hodge all day talk about how he bravely was going to go after these men and create this thing. Obviously, if there's going to be a fight, you're going to want to watch, right? As he took out the gun and shot him, that's when people just reacted. Charles, who was already laying there bleeding on the ground, was grabbed by the crowd, brought over to a cow pen which was in the vicinity, and they pulled him toward that cow pen. Somebody asked, who has a rope? He told me not to name a name. I'm going to name one name. A man named Andrew Sevier said, I got a rope. Now, the funny thing about Andrew Sevier is he was the deputy sheriff at the time. I got a rope. So they hoisted up Charles to this cow pen, and the crossbar smashed his skull. Probably died right at that juncture. Now, of course, Joe, seeing a bit of this and the crowd trying to go after him, was at the doorstep of his house. He went inside and shut the door. And there were reports that they had all forced their way in. Some reports that he tried to crawl up a chimney. I don't know how that's possible. But they were shooting at him as that they were trying to drag him out. And they were dragging him out and shooting him at the same time as they were dragging him out. Shot multiple times. And they took him and they did the same thing with him. Hung him up at the cow pen. So in that one instance, within, I would say, just about half an hour's time, they were both dead. The other three who had been over at Francesco's house had come out to see what had happened, and the sheriff, according to the newspaper accounts, took them in and arrested them with the thought that maybe it was a conspiracy because they had been inside all day, so they must have been planning this. So that was what the sheriff arrested him on.